Hi everybody, my name is David and this is All Things Sacred. So I'm here to do a final video on the goddess. It's been a little bit since I've done a video, lots of things going on in the world, lots of things, going on everywhere, and, I just haven't really had the time to make a video, been focused on other things. And I'm here to make a video, probably the final video on the goddess, on the Chandi, on the Devi Mahatmyam. I've decided, I've given it a lot of thought, and I've decided that I'm not going to do what I consider to be too much of an academic commentary by going through each of the individual texts or the quotes. I felt that that approach lacked a lot of heart, and I'm satisfied with the work that I've put thus far of, just kind of approaching the philosophy of the goddess, trying to touch into the idea of what a transcendent being is, what that really means, and how we can connect to that on a daily level. That's really looking at a lot of the story elements of the work of the Chandi, and those are very important. They bring out a lot of the philosophy, as do the celebrations of her various attributes, aspects of the goddess, how she essentially encompasses all things, and how she transcends all of everything, and how she is within all things. She creates all things as well as the mother of all things. She is inside of all things as the life force that allows their variation and their existence. As well, she is also the greater force, the greater cosmic power that, exists outside of this so that it can direct it. And how by offering propitiations, we can form a direct link to her. And I want to talk in this video now that after showing all that, how we can form a direct link to, first we get the philosophy, what the goddess is, what she is all about, and how important it is to have a connection to her, and how there's a direct link through prayer and offering of ourself to her. I want to now show what it is, that how our life will change by doing this. The benefits of doing this, of connecting to this link. Of course, the philosophical and intellectual concepts are very important, but on a day-to-day level, she is so much more important. She becomes truly like our mother. There is a reason why she is called mother, why the goddess is called mother, why this transcendent being, God, just absoluteness, consciousness, any name you want to give it, why it's given such affectionate terms. And that's because when we bring this intellectual concept into our life, we gain the greatest ease and well-being, happiness and peace, and compassion. We gain so many good qualities. Our life begins to vibrate in a faster, more bright way, where we are able to express ourselves fully, beyond these sheaths of personality and attachments and aversions. We're able to express our true self. Our soul self is able to start shining through in moments shared with others and in moments alone. Everything becomes so much brighter and better and easier when we don't just know about the link and know about the intellect that of what it is we're supposed to link to, but when we actually make the effort, our life begins to change in seemingly just small and insignificant ways that really go to better ourselves entirely. I was considering a lot of the words that I say are going to be best suited for someone who is in old age. Because, these are big ultimate things. You don't really think about these transcendent concepts, philosophy until you're older, but that is such a waste. We have whole lives, usually, often, hopefully, to delve deep into the truth behind the scenes, but we waste it in worry and fear, hatred, jealousy, all forms of negativity. We don't look at our true self. Instead, we focus on the world around us, on the Maya, on the play. And we become entrapped in, the phrase is often, whirlpool of delusion. And that can be in itself, that is the true frightening thing. Not the things in our life that cause us panic, that cause us fear, that cause us uneasiness or discomfort. Those things aren't the real horror. The true horror is that we become so engrossed in those things that we forget our and possibly suffer lifetimes away from these realizations, which can and should be shared. It's natural. I don't like using the word should, but it's natural to share because that's how it grows. That's how, this sense of self, which seems like a very individual thing, really shares when one brings in a greater consciousness to share it from. But there's a very practical reason for talking about all this, because we are facing a time period, a moment in our history, in our lives, where everything is being thrown topsy-turvy, where people are inside, in what is normally a very rajasic society, a society that has to do with productivity and, movement and action. Now people are being called to do a sattvic, or rather even a tamasic activity. We have to be careful as individuals to see where this time period will lead us. Will it, as an individual, pull us towards tamasic being, where with this, loss of this focus on productivity and movement, now being inside, are we just going to, fall into lethargy? Or are we going to use this to get in contact with ourselves? Because many people who come inside now from a rajasic state are going to suffer the consequences of being alone with their mind, when the mind is not a tool but the master. And this is, a very scary thing for a lot of people. And it can make these periods inside difficult. And it's one of the reasons why we can use this time. We can take our rajasic energy as a society and bring it inside. And we want to do work, we want to do stuff, we want to keep moving and being productive. We'll use that to focus on your spiritual development. Don't use it to sit with the mind and its fear and its panic, which isn't going to bring you health. If you sit there and worry that this quarantine, this self-isolation won't benefit you, that you're going to get sick and possibly die anyway while you're sitting there currently healthy, then you do yourself a great disservice. You do yourself a great harm, when instead you can use this to plumb your real depths, to start picking up that mindfulness practice, that meditation practice that you've been putting off, to use it to connect to deity, to take a lot of these philosophical concepts that you could find on my channel and many other people's channels, and use that to really start to approach these experiences and not just have the intellectual concept of everything. It's a wonderful opportunity to take this negative situation and use it as a very positive thing, as a something, a catalyst to hopefully a new spiritual dimension of your life. So this video is about, that's the call that I'm trying to say, is to use this time to eradicate your fear. Even though it's a time of panic for many, use it to eradicate that panic within yourself. Now that you can see this part of yourself, that you didn't even know was there, this ugly, scared little thing, now that you can see that, if you have expressed that, whether it be about the COVID-19 pandemic, on the other side, I've also seen people being on the 5G. If you are on either side and expressing panic within yourself about any topic, and you're forced to sit here with your mind and look at it, well, look at it. And realize by bringing consciousness to it. That's what Eckhart Tolle, says a lot. I really like that phrase. Bring consciousness to your panic and see that it's wasting your time. Just by bringing consciousness, you become aware that it is unnecessary. Hold to that consciousness. Hold to that perspective of it, that it is unnecessary, that it does you no good. I mean, if you want to bring into the intellect of it, there's so many studies that show that meditation reduces stress, and that stress alone causes a compromised immune system. So if meditation reduces stress, then it improves your immune system. So meditation is the best thing that you can do, because it helps both your mind and your body. And right now you have the time and ability to go ahead and do this. Because even the people who aren't in self-isolation, many of them have their hours cut back. It's a time to really, take to yourself and find yourself. Keep yourself moving and stuff, but you have to realize that this Rajasic way of being is not necessarily beneficial, because, meditation is doing something, but it's not like movement, like Rajas. So, the goddess is the number one way, in my opinion, in my personal experience. And this is different for everyone, because everyone's connection to their form of consciousness, of God, of deity, is different. For me personally, and if you're been following these videos, then you might also understand how the goddess is such a great form to eradicate this fearlessness. And if the text is saying that by offering prayers to her, we can come to reap her boons, then it is best to at least attempt that. Now that we have a chance to form a small practice, at least chant a mantra, print out a picture and use that as a altar, create a little space for yourself where you can meditate and pray and just speak to the goddess and really go into it with a sincere heart, so that you can see her alive in your life at all moments. We want to remember. I talked about the link at the beginning, and there's the consciousness above, and the actions that we have to do, the way that we have to be. We have to constantly look for that link. It's a link of remembrance. Because if we can constantly remember the fearlessness that the goddess can bring us, that our true self, our most inner being, our innermost being can bring us when we tap into the memory of it, then we can hold strong in these time periods. Meditation should never be just confined to the time in which you meditate. When you sit down to meditate, it is important to have a sadhana, a practice, where you do sit down or stand. If you do qigong, or there's various ways, various forms of yoga, of various asanas. Specifically, I'm talking about in hatha yoga. You could be standing, possibly. That's why I mention it. But it should never be confined. The consciousness that you try to tap into during meditation should never be confined to just those meditation periods, because you are only doing half, you're only getting half the benefit from it at that point. Of course, you're sure basic mindfulness will lower your stress and stuff, but there are samadhi type experiences where you lose your sense of self that you can bring into your daily life that might not seem beneficial from, when you just express that to someone as a bit of meditation. But if you've been watching any of these videos, I've explained why that is a great benefit, because it's helping you to remember your real self. And it's helping you to act from not only to live in a place where fearlessness is a real and, where courage is a tangible thing that surrounds you, because of your even-mindedness and your ease and your joy. I forgot exactly my train of thought there. But yeah, the goddess will bring fearlessness, and that's really what I've been saying this whole time. Um, And so the last point that I wanted to bring up in this video was about the concept of death. Because the greatest fear that most people walk with, especially in this time period, is that, the sickness is going to get them, and it's either going to kill them or kill a loved one. And I was really trying to, I was just tapping into, just meditating on why, on how the goddess is an important part of our life to overcome these fears of death, because it is important to be reasonable and to follow the guidelines that are prescribed by the medical professionals, but that doesn't mean that we have to be sitting in fear, and that when we go out we don't have to be constantly fearing for our life and for the life of our loved ones. Death will come, and we have to realize that death will come. It's not going to necessarily come now, and we shouldn't try to rush it or be foolhardy. It's not being courageous to go out there unnecessarily and to harm put others in danger. But that death will come. Death will come no matter what, and we have to know that death is a beautiful thing. That death isn't something to fear, and it's unfortunately something people fear so much that when they do die, they keep coming back to life over and over again because they don't recognize the beauty of it. All of these videos that I've been talking, in what I've been talking, I'm focusing on this one idea, that there is a transcendent being within you who you are, who is the truest you. And unfortunately, we're always covered in many, many sheets. That's the series of videos that I'm going to do after this, is the sheets. And we have the sheath of the body and the emotions, the thoughts, the personality, and the sense of life, of differentiation, duality, all of this things caused by generation, of us being generated, block the real self. And when you die, it's one of the few moments, without extreme, extensive meditation, without a lot of practice, without oftentimes years of development, where you get a chance to see your real self. Because after the death, after you and your the various parts of yourself are eradicated, there's a moment where it's just transcendence, where you're existing there with your, that it's just like a light, as how the Tibetans described it, at least. Light so white it's blue, is what they said. And if you don't recognize that as being you, so obviously if you for a moment bring differentiation, right? Because if you don't recognize, everything about that, it creates a division of of yourself. Suddenly you have this self that is separate from anything that it sees, and that causes reincarnation. It causes us to come back through all the horror and glory that, individual life will experience. And we have to understand through all of this intellect, all this philosophy, and then the practicality, we have to understand that death is our chance to reconnect to the goddess, to re-become the goddess, to re-remember at least all of those beautiful realizations and epiphanies that once we have are always just right outside our reach, oftentimes for most people, because their conditioning comes in and puts a cage around those things, or keep them out. And that for that reason, the goddess really shows us that there's nothing to fear. Because even if it comes to our worst horror, which is suffering physically or death, both of those things, suffering, those trials, can bring us to call to her with greater desperation, because, desperation is such an important thing when connecting to deity. It really proves the heart's sincerity to itself. But in physical suffering, we're given the chance for that. Although we shouldn't seek it, obviously. Then we're just, testing unnecessarily the, life. And in death, so, that's how suffering, the benefit from it. And in death, we're given a chance to fully remember who we are and to remember our love for where we really came from, so to say. So there's nothing to fear. And I hope that you keep these thoughts with you to actually practice in these trying and difficult times. This doesn't mean to be foolhardy. To have courage doesn't mean to be reckless. So I want to thank you all. Wish you have a good night. Stay safe in these, again, difficult times. Meditate, pray, set up, practice for yourself a small routine. Promise it will help through this time, and this time will pass too. So, love you all. Have a great night.